We're going to begin this morning with our patient speaker, Dmitry Karpeyev, and listen to his story. Dmitry, will you please come up? Thank you.
Thank you for having me here. It's probably the biggest room I've ever spoken in. And I'm a bit out of habit of giving talks, so please bear with me. So I was told to tell this story. It's going to be a short story. I hope you like it. And it's about, it's my personal story, but it's about a lot of other people and how people empower each other. So I don't have much to disclose, but I'll take this opportunity to tell you guys about myself a bit. I'm not a physician, but I used to be a scientist. Some people say, you're still a scientist once you've been one. I spent about 15 years at Oregon National Laboratory doing a bunch of different things, including biomaterials, mostly computational physics. But so I had some experience with biology. Now I work in finance, and my specialty is machine learning and AI. It's kind of trendy now. I have a wife and 4 children. There they are. I live near Chicago. I don't really have much in the way of conflict of interest, except I am a cancer survivor, and I'm trying to fight back with your help. So specifically, I volunteer at the University of Chicago Pritzker School of Medicine. And in fact, I played a small part in the publication in Nature Communications a year ago, led by James Dolezal, Alex Pearson, a whole bunch of people from UChicago, the Mayo Clinic, and so on. And I've tried to do more. So that's my message. I'm trying to do more, not just take it sitting down or lying down. So how did this all happen? This was right before the pandemic. Nothing really felt out of line, except I had a stuffed nose all the time. And so people took a look and said, oh, it's a simple thing. It's a deviated septum. So we're just going to do simple surgery and you'll be just fine. Then they went in and discovered this mysterious mass, and his pathology took forever. They had to send it to the Mayo Clinic, and it was just a terrible time to not know what's going on. I felt extremely helpless. And in the end, it was cancer. Adenoid cystic carcinoma, ACC. I'd never heard of this thing before. And to me, ACC meant helplessness. I just didn't know why it happened to me. I didn't know what to do. And my wife told me, cancer is random. Somehow, that made me feel better. I think maybe because it meant that it's not my fault. I don't know. But it certainly was something, and still is something that I remember. Cancer is random. But treatment is deliberate. All of you are making it possible. Every day, it's getting better. So there was a long time, many second opinions, many recommendations from friends, and ultimately, I was referred to Nishan Agarwal at the University of Chicago. The person that referred me to him said, he probably doesn't operate anymore. He's the head of a department now. And so I thought, well, there's no chance there. But when I met Nishan, he was one of the most kind and hands-on people. He met me in scrubs and in the hat. He came in to see me, even though he wasn't supposed to be in the clinic that day. And so this is how my dream team was put together. Immediately, same day, I met two more plastic surgeons, Lawrence Gottlieb and Russell Reed, amazing people who made me ultimately be able to speak and eat and everything. Dr. Horowitz, who was a neurosurgeon, and a whole bunch of other people. This was an amazing time, but also a very scary time, and the kind of longest 2 weeks that I had to live through waiting for my surgery. So in the meantime, I was trying to understand what I was up against. What is this thing? So I asked Nishan, while I was waiting, I emailed him and said, you know, I've been reading the internet, probably not the best idea, but the internet tells me there's no cure. You know, this thing will recur with high probability. What is going on there? And he's sent me an email and CC'd these two people, Alex Pearson and Evgeny Zumchenko. It turns out they were working on many things, but in particular on ACC, on this rare cancer that I'd never heard of, that the internet told me was extremely rare. But right there at UChicago, there was a whole group of people working on it. And they also copied a recent paper they published that told me that from histopathology slides, they could infer stuff about the mutations that drove cancers. I was blown away. From a picture, you can get at the molecular mechanisms. It's amazing. So I worked up my courage and I called Evgeny. So I spent him 2 hours on the phone. It helped that we both were raised speaking Russian, so we talked a long time. And so I learned a whole bunch of interesting things, in particular about organoids that Evgeny is working on. I've never heard of these things. And at the end of this conversation, he said, you should come work with us. You know, you know data, you know how to work with data, and you were a scientist, so why don't you come work with us? I was blown away. And this was the first time I felt like maybe I'm not totally helpless. Maybe I can do something. Well, then there was a long surgery, almost 24 hours. I'd never had surgery before this little deviated septum, so-called deviated septum. So to go from nothing to 24 hours was quite a step. I spent 2 weeks in the ICU. I was intubated. It took a bone on my leg to reconstruct my face, and so after that, it was quite a learning curve to be able to talk and walk and eat. You know, for a long time, I ate through a tube. And then I also had to go through chemo and radiation. So for 3 months, I wore this mask. You can see a lot of you know exactly what it is. So this was a mask that they put on me every day for 3 months, and maybe thanks to that thing, I'm here today. I had an amazing radiation oncologist, Dr. Faraf. And it turned out that I was sharing doctors with a celebrity chef. Fred Eckes is a famous chef in Chicago. There was an article about him in the New Yorker. He thanked your Chicago doctors, including Dr. Faraf, for not just saving his life, saving his professional life, because he had, tongue cancer, and they were able to cure him, not take his tongue out. What's a chef without a tongue? But they were able to do it. So, amazingly, I had same doctors as a star chef. Next up was chemo. And so this is when I finally met Alex Pearson in person. He and Fred Howard, who was his fellow at the time and now is a professor at UChicago, I talked to them about what to expect in chemo. And one thing that came up in that conversation was that in the last 2 years at the time, ACC went from, as Alex put it, from Stone Age to cell phones. That was just an amazing thing to hear. What does it mean? Well, there was a lot of progress. Maybe we're not quite at the cure, but we're moving so fast. And how is it possible? Well, it turns out a lot of it is due to all of you. But there was a big role played by the ACC Research Foundation and Jeff Kaufman, who founded it because his wife had ACC. And so he decided, he's not a doctor, but he decided to take the fight to the cancer. He founded a research foundation, and I spoke to Jeff later, and he told me they own their own cell lines in I think even mice models. Amazing stuff. Something that people can do. We're not helpless. It was a rough year. It was the COVID year, and I kept getting recurrent infections, probably due to the chemo and so suppressed immunity. So I spent a lot of time at the hospital, and I worked the whole time because I'm a remote worker. So I would have meetings from my hospital bed to the point where the nurses would put a little sign outside my room saying "meeting in progress," so that I could have my daily meetings at work without being disturbed. So huge thanks to all of the hospital staff that not just made it possible for me to be here today, but also to even have essentially a normal life, even working there. But
To the limit.
I'm sorry. One thing I realized is that for a long time I was waiting to just get over this thing and resume my normal life, but there's no going back. It's not just a bump, it's a sharp turn. And all the while I was sitting there in the hospital bed or at home in bed, and I kept hearing Evgeny's words in my head. You should come work with us. And that, to me, that was a way of, regaining some control. Control is an illusion in life, but we can do more than just take it lying down. So when it came time for me to do my surveillance visits with Alex, I asked the usual, how am I doing? Doctor, am I okay? And next thing I said was, look, I used to be a scientist, and I can code in my spare time. Can I do something to help? Probably took a couple of times, and eventually I sent Alex my CV, but I think eventually I wore him down. And he invited me into his Zoom meetings. An amazing team, and this is just a few of them, the Pearson Laboratory at the University of Chicago that combines AI, machine learning, whatever the name is these days, histopathology, and a bunch of other things to take cancer diagnosis to the next level. This is some of the students and residents and fellows. Some of them are not at U Chicago anymore. Some of them are at Harvard, Ohio State. But we still meet every week. Well, sometimes I don't make the meeting, but on Zoom or in person, every week we're doing something. And like I said, I'm just a volunteer. I'll watch this most of the time, but everybody's doing something to advance this fight. And one of the first things, I wanted to do something, and so the group assigned a literature review to me. In particular, the question was, can an AI model know when it's unsure of the prediction he makes? And can this knowledge help? So I did a simple thing that I knew from my prior life as a scientist. I did the literature search, and I found a few papers, eventually zeroing in on this paper by Gal and Gargamani on using a simple technique, dropout, that the people that do machine learning and neural networks use all the time, to actually get a good estimate of the uncertainty of the model's prediction. That's all I did, more or less. Then James Dolezal, an amazing doctor and scientist, he took this, well, he wasn't the only one, but he certainly led the effort, ran with it, and lo and behold, a year later, we had a publication in Nature. I mean, this is in my whole scientific career, I hadn't had a publication of this impact. There were a lot of people on it. Don't get me wrong, there were people from the Mayo Clinic here in Chicago. But, you know, this is a real impact. This actually does make a difference for our ML models in terms of quality of diagnosis. There were a lot of other things. I'm not doing justice to it with this one little slide. There was in November 2022, there was a big gala in Chicago. The Cancer Research Foundation was raising money for University of Chicago's cancer program, and they made a whole movie about my experience. They came out to my house and interviewed me with Alex. I wish I had included some pictures here, but the point is, you know, we can do these things together. We can write papers. We can raise money to move the needle, to make a difference. These days, the Pearson Lab is doing great. They just won a Wellcome Leap grant that focuses on quantum computing in collaboration with Inflection, a quantum startup at MIT, to do multimodal quantum cancer diagnosis, eventually, hopefully, using actual quantum hardware. And, you know, in my spare time, I do what I can to help the team move this thing forward. So, the takeaway I want to leave you with is that cancer is random, but we're not powerless. You probably know it better than anybody. And for me personally, this manifests in multiple ways. University of Chicago, the amazing doctors and scientists there. The Mayo Clinic, who did the initial pathology on me and then collaborated on the paper. The ACC Research Foundation, the Pearson Lab, all of these people together, and hopefully with my small contribution, are doing something. We're not powerless. We can often do more than we can think, than we think we can do. And that's because we help each other. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much.